Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Sage 300 CRE Atrix form session. I should say good afternoon for where you guys are. My name is Jeanette, and I'll be your presenter this afternoon. We're going to be going through the 1099 and W-2 forms, some of the other quarterly forms, for those of you that haven't or don't have that much experience with the Atrix option inside Sage 300. Before we get started, just a reminder there that with your email invitation, there are links to some material. The PowerPoint is one of the links. There is another that is a document, a Word document that we're going to be following today. It's 54 pages. So if you haven't already, if you want to take a minute to get that printed out, we're actually going to be following through on the majority of these pages, and this will be a good place for you to take for you to take notes. Okay, so why don't we go ahead then? We're going to get started. So what we're going to talk about today is we're focusing directly on the Atrix portion of the year end. Last week we talked about, or our last session we talked about closing the year. We're going to be doing that session next week on Tuesday the 18th. So this session is strictly Atrix. We're going to talk about what it is, how you get it up and running, what your options are within the program. We're going to jump into the software, look at accounts payable, the vendor setup, and then we'll actually do a test run of the 1099 forms. We're going to do the same thing for payroll. We're going to go in and review the W-2 setup. We're going to look at the forms. I've got material in your handout for the ACA forms that you may need to print out. We're not going to focus too much in that area. I'll just point out the information in that document that you can follow along when you actually do your ACA forms. We're also going to talk about merging data files. I know that some of you may have more than one company or set of data that you're running your year-end forms on. A good example of this might be having executive payroll in a separate either set of files or folder. So I'm going to show you how to merge those together to get one run of W-2s. All right, so just a general overview of what Atrix is. Several years ago, Sage decided not to continue supporting the actual 1099 and W-2 forms. And so they brought in a third-party company called Atrix that not only maintains all the forms, they also do the e-filing, or potentially you can have them do the e-filing for you for all the mandatory government reporting that you need to do. Now, if you're just using Atrix to print the forms or the reports, there is no cost. But if you want to e-file, if you have them do the e-filing for you, there is a fee for that, and we'll talk a little bit about that once we get into the software. Now, additionally, there's over 330 U.S. state and federal forms that you will have access to with Atrix. Now, in your handout, there is, starting on page 2, there is the setup, the Atrix e-file center. Now, if you are only going to use Atrix to print the forms, you're going to do the government reporting yourself. You don't actually have to go through and register with Atrix. But if you are going to take advantage of their e-file option, then you do need to go through and register your company through the e-file center. So I've got the website at the top of page 2. It's efile.atrix.com, and you'll be given an option to enroll. And then I've got some screenshots in there for you that I took as I registered myself. So there's log on information, account information, contact information, company information is on page 3. You'll need to set up a password in order to get into Atrix to do the e-filing. They'll ask you some security questions, and you'll need to provide an answer. And then it will take you through all the way through page 5. There will be extra screens that you'll need to click onto to add your bank account. So if you're going to have Atrix make payments for you, one of the things I use it for is to make my monthly tax deposits. So they create the tax deposit form for me, and then they e-file it with the state and the federal government. So you'll need to go through and add a bank account so that they can withdraw the funds. And then you need to click on the update filing states. So you want to put in the states where your company is going to be filing taxes, and it's going to actually have a place for you to put all the tax IDs in at that point. And then some of the forms with the e-filing require personal identification numbers. So there is a place for you to go in and enter those PIN numbers. And then lastly, I don't have the pricing tab in there, but there will be a place for you to go ahead and select, if you want, an e-file package based on the number of employees or vendors that you have. Sometimes it can be a whole lot cheaper for you to go ahead and use one of their price packages to do your forms. I use the one for myself for the 1 to 5 employees. I'm able to run as many forms based on that price as I need. So that's tax deposits, that's quarterly reports, state and federal. And then at the end of the year, the only thing that I have to pay for, there is a separate charge for the W-2 run. So that fee does not include the W-2s. Okay, hold on for just a second, everybody. Sorry. I have a little visitor in with me that wants to keep meowing. Okay. All right. Once you're registered, the first time that you go into Atrix, either the 1099 program or the state forms or the federal forms, it's going to prompt you that first time, and then additionally after that, you may every once in a while get this window where it's requiring a forms update. So especially this time of the year where Atrix is making all kinds of updates to all the different state forms and the federal forms, you may get this multiple times before you're done with year end. So when this pops up, what you're going to want to select, if you are attached to the internet, you have to have an internet connection. You're going to click on Automatic Update. It's going to go through and give you a list of all the forms that are out of date and that need to be updated. And so you let it go through and let it generate this list, and then you're going to click the next button again, and it's going to go through and update all of those forms. When it's done, it'll tell you that it's completed, and then you need to click the close button. So it doesn't take you right into the program after it does the update. Once the update is done, then you can go back to tasks, either state forms or federal forms, and it'll go into the program. All right, so to get started with this then, if you haven't done it already, you're going to register with Atrix if you're going to have them do any e-filing for you. And then you're going to launch the program from the tasks menu in either AP or payroll. And the very first time you do it, it's going to ask you to update the forms. And then from there, we're going to jump into the software. and take a look first at 1099s. Now, before we actually do a 1099 run, there are two places that I want to double check with you. First is under File, Company Settings, AP Settings. You need to make sure that your year ending date is at least 2017. 2018 will, if your dates are 2017, 2018 will have posted into next year. You need to close the year so that you get your year-ending date into 2018. If you're beyond a year in the future, meaning this date is in the past, you may have to double verify the totals as you close the year to make sure that 2018 is isolated. It needs to either be in your next year buckets or in your last year buckets, so that you can, by closing the year, you can get those amounts into either the prior year or the current year. You can go ahead at the end of the year prior to running your 1099 forms. You can close the year into 2019. You can run your forms off of the last year fields. So just make sure that you've got valid dates here in these two fields. Then on the vendors, you need to make sure that you've got all of your 1099 settings entered on the 1099 settings tab. Make sure that the vendors that need a form are checkmarked. The second TIN notice is just to check a box on the form that you have asked the vendor multiple times for a tax ID number. If you need to move the amounts to the gross paid to an attorney box, you need to check this box here. If you want the 1099 to be emailed instead of you printing and having to mail it yourself, you can actually check this box here and put an email address here. And then as you do the 1099 forms, there's a spot on the screen, and I'll show you that, where you can tell it that you want to send, you're going to email out the forms to these vendors that are marked this way. The recipient's tax ID goes here, so this is either a federal ID or it is a Social Security number. Their tax ID name, if they are doing business as, you'll put their name here, and then the DBA name goes up here at the top under vendor name. And then it will print both of these on the form. This goes first, and then the second line would say DBA A1 Electric. Under form type, the default is for a miscellaneous 1099. You'll have to do separate runs to do the rents and the interest and the dividends. So you would do one run up to get miscellaneous, and then maybe another run to get the rents, and another one to get interest. Each vendor can only be marked as one type. If they need multiple 1099s, you have two choices. You can set up two different vendor IDs and mark this field differently on each one, or you can turn on audit setup activity, and you can modify the amount down here to match the form type, run the form, and then come back, change the type here, and modify this amount again, and run the second form. So you'll have to keep track of the totals between the multiple forms if you're going to do it that way. Now, one thing to note, even if you don't check this box, the vendor receives a Form 1099, this amount paid, this set of fields here will automatically post or update. So you don't have to worry that you forgot to mark the vendor when you set them up. You can come back later and check them off. All right, so that's what you need on the vendor, and your AP settings need to be set correctly. One thing you might want to do is run the 1099 preparation report. This is under Under Reports, Miscellaneous, if you want to make sure that you've got all of the vendors that you need marked to receive a 1099, this report will run either by vendor or by GL prefix. And if we do a print preview here, it will sort them out by vendor type, and then it will give you a list of their names, their IDs, addresses, and their ID. Okay. So I would, maybe run this report and then cruise through, make sure that everybody that needs a miscellaneous 1099 is on this list. If not, if they're missing, all you need to do is go back in on the vendor and check that box to receive a 1099. All right, at this point then, we are ready to go ahead. If we're sure that everything has been entered and posted for the year, then we can come in and run Government E-File and Reporting Form 1099. So at this point, what it was doing there is that it was going out to the internet and checking to see if any forms had been updated since the last time I ran the update. And if everything is up to date, it'll pop up this screen. If it's not, then it will bring up that screen where you click on the button to do an automatic update. All right, if you're doing a new form, new run for the year, you'll leave the bullet at New 1099 Report. If you need to reprint forms or review forms from a previous run, you can go into the Saved and it will show you a list of your previous 1099 runs, and you can pull those up and reprint if you need to. So we're going to leave this today. We're going to leave it on New 1099 Report. Now, because I have marked my settings to also accumulate by fiscal entity, I have this option here. So I can, if I need to print multiple 1099 forms for the same vendor based on maybe a company, a GL prefix that might represent company, then I can click here and I can select my GL prefix that I want to run the forms for. Otherwise, if I want to just do a full run by vendor, I can leave it here as to vendor. But if I haven't selected to store 1099 totals by GL prefix, this part of the screen is not there. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So right here under AP settings, I've got this checkbox here to retain totals per GL prefix. If I uncheck that and come back in, you'll see that that part of the screen is missing. Now, one tip here, let me cancel this and come back here. If this is your first time doing 1099s and you are retaining totals per GL prefix, you need to make sure that on the GL prefix itself that you have gone in and put in the federal ID. Now notice here if I say by fiscal entity and I click on that and then I've got my prefix there, notice that the federal ID is filled in for me. This is mandatory. If you're doing this by vendor, notice that the federal ID is not filled in. So you have to manually fill that in order to go forward. All right, the form type defaults to a miscellaneous. The reporting year defaults to the current year that you're in, but you can go back if you've already closed the year and this date is coming up as 2019, just click the drop down and switch it back to 18. Put your minimum reporting amount and then hit next. you're going to get a list of all the vendors. And I'm going to just, for speeds here, I'm going to just print the first two. All right, and you hit next, and then you click generate. All right, it's going out and it's pulling up all the valid information about your vendor master file. All right, we're just going to do a test run here. The default comes up. It thinks you are ready to start running your 1099s. We're going to change it to a test mode, which is what I recommend that you do, is that your first run of 1099s should be a test drive of all of your recipients to blank paper, so that you can go back through and verify that all the information on those forms is correct. It automatically pulls in your tax ID number. On the next screen, the multiple data files, I'm going to demonstrate this to you when we get into payroll. So right now we're going to say, no, I've got a single file for AP master file for this particular run. On the next window, it brings up all of your company information, and this is being pulled out of Sage off the General tab. Your tax preparer type, you are going to be filing for your company / employer. If you have any state information filled in, it's going to be on this window here. Just hit the next button. Here's where you can say, do you have any recipients who elected to only receive 1099 forms electronically? You can say yes, and they will get their forms via email. On the recipient identification numbers, you can decide how you want those numbers to print. Do you want it truncated with asterisks or with X's, or do you want the full number to print? And then what about leading zeros? So you make your selection there and click next. And then it is going through now. It should come up here with a grid for us to verify our data. Okay, so it's just telling us here again that we're test drive only. Nothing is going to the e-file center. Okay, so we're going to be using this window to next through with the button up here at the top. It's verifying information for us on the grid. So here we just click next step. And again, it's doing it by kind of ranges of boxes here. If it finds any thing that doesn't look right, it's going to give us a warning and show us what the problem is on the screen. And it looks like so far everything is looking fine. So I'm just continuing to click the next button. Okay, and then here we go. When you get to this window, you need to tell the system what it is that you want to do. If you're doing the complete 1099 e-filing service, notice here that there is a charge based on the number of vendors that you have, but there's also a minimum. So I'm doing 2 vendors, and I'm going to go ahead and e-file, but it's still going to cost me almost $25. So it's kind of up to you. Once you get to this window to see how much the charge is, you may want to change this down here to other options instead, and you're going to print yourself. Let's see. But you're maybe not going to e-file, so you can take that off. So see here that you can print your recipient copies for free. You can also print your federal copies for free. So if you decide that that's the route you want to go and you're going to get the information to the government some other way, you can use the Atrix to print your forms for free. You'll need to go ahead and purchase the paper for it. Okay, once you've made your selection here, then you'll hit the next button. It's just giving you some, giving you some benefits of using the complete 1099 e-filing service. Click next again. Decide if you want divider sheets between the different types of forms. Click next. Here it's telling you what it is you're going to be printing. So again, just hit next. It's just listing the information. And then when you hit next again, it will be bringing up the forms. Now, because we don't have the year-end forms out here yet, Atrix hasn't released them. So these are still saying 2017 at the bottom of your screen, of this screen. I think in your book it probably says 2016 because I didn't update the form in that document yet. All right, so here's where again you would print these out, and you're going to use the buttons at the top up here. So when you're doing a real run, there'll be a save button. There'll be a print button. And I'm going to say no to that. So here's where it got to the instructions. No. Okay. All right. In your handout on page 18, because we did not do a final run, you will see two screenshots there. The top one says verify the report is complete, and you can click agree. If you click agree, it's going to take you to the screen on the bottom. If you click on double check, it takes you back to the forms, and then you can check stuff over and then go forward again. When you get to the screen on the bottom, this is where you check or click the box to e-file, and then it's going to connect you with Atrix. You will log in with them, and then it'll run you through doing the e-filing the forms. Now, if you have selected printing right here at the bottom, there's a print button, bottom of page 18 and the bottom of that screen. So instead of doing an e-file, you want to print the forms instead. All right. All right, so that is the workflow for 1099s. Now again, I would go ahead and get the report, again here under reports, miscellaneous 1099 preparation, get that printed out, go through, make any changes to the vendors that you need to based on that report, then come back in under tasks, do the form 1099 and do a test run of all your vendors. I would print them all. And then again, go through and verify that the information on those forms is correct. All right, payroll, starting on page 19. For those of you that are new to Sage or haven't been using the payroll Atrix options, I'm just going to walk through very briefly with the quarterly reports. Since this is not only year-end, it's also the end of the fourth quarter, and you need to run your quarterly forms for both state and federal. So I'm going to go through here quickly here, and I'm going to grab this is the quarterly report, and I'm going to run this for the fourth quarter for 2018. So it's just all you do is select your state, select the form, make sure that the period and the year are correct, and hit next. It's going to bring up a list of all of your employees. I'm just going to grab 2 here. And it's pretty much the same set of screens that we saw in AP. And you're just verify that those options are all in place. Okay, so here you're going to see this little screen pop up about their complete package. So if you want to learn more about the pricing and stuff, you can click on that. And this takes you right to their website. But I don't think we need to actually do that. Let's see. All right. So here I just moved back into the quarterly report. And this report steps window always pops up, asks you to review, make sure that you review, correct anything that is in red, make a copy or print a copy for yourself, and then either do the e-file or print out the official federal or state copy and mail it. So just click OK on this window. Make sure that you correct anything that's in red. Be sure you move all the way down, because sometimes the whole form is not in that first part of the screen. Make sure that you, let's see, I think I did, there we go. And, oops, I'll just do quarterly. Okay, make sure everything in red is filled in. Now, also up here at the top, make sure that you watch how many pages there are to the form. This arrow up here, if there's more than one page, you can click on this and it'll bring you to the second page. And you can toggle back and forth. And then when you're done, just click the Save button. You can actually print from here. This will print to your printer. And then as you go through, click on to the next step. Now, here's the important notice about making sure everything is right. If you agree, it's going to move forward. If you click on double check, it takes you back to the form. And then from there, you will get the e-file button that's on the bottom of page 23. All right, so we're going to finish this. And we're going to get rid of that too. Let's get back in payroll. All right, so federal forms. You should be filing your 941. Fourth quarter here. Now, eventually, we're going to have 2018 W-2s up in here. So as soon as we look at the fourth quarter federal 941, we're going to come back and we're going to run. We're just going to pretend that we have a 2018 form and walk through those screens. All right, so here, just make sure that you're in the fourth quarter in the correct year. Click Next. Click Next again, then click Generate. Which is at the bottom of page 25. Okay, we get the processing, the report message again. Click OK. Okay. Make sure that everything here is filled out correctly. If there's anything in red, you need to correct it. So let's just see here. Okay. Pretend that I paid. All right. And then you also need to make sure that the second page, click the button and go to the second page. Okay. Make sure that all of this is filled out correctly. Okay. Yep. All right. And then you can save it. And then next step, or print. Okay. And then eventually, again, you're going to get back here to the verify report screen and either agree or double check. And if you agree, then it takes you forward to the filing options window, which is at the bottom of page 27. All right, W-2s. There is a setup within Sage still for W-2s, and Atrix reads this setup. So under Tools, you have Modify Forms, and you have W-2 forms. The system comes with a form called Default. You can use this form over and over again. You don't have to go in and create a new form for every year, which I've seen other users do. If you have more than one form, when you start the Atrix program, it will actually prompt you to select the form that you want to use. Otherwise, it's going to use this default, which that's what we'll use here for our class today. So enter out of the top. You need to put in an employee minimum. So you don't want any employees that did not work this year. You don't want to print a blank W-2 for them. So put at least a penny in here so that if their year-to-date is 0, you're not going to waste paper. Then click your Amounts tab, and this brings up the screen that kind of shows what a default area on the W-2 looks like. Now, some of the information is already filled in, so they've already got hard-coded fields within the software to pull in your federal taxable, the tax, all the taxable amounts, all the taxes themselves. What you'll need to fill in is if you need anything else to print in boxes 11, 12, or 14. Now, the stuff that goes in box 12, these are the government items, like the 401k. You'll need to come in here, and you need to actually clear that out. Actually, let me thought that I can blank that out. I just want it out of there. Oh, come on. Delete. No. Delete this form. No. Okay. So here's what I'm going to do, because I need to get these boxes over here. I'm going to start a new form. So I can show you how to fill those in. Okay. So on this first line, it wants the description here. Okay. So you can type the letter that goes with the item that you want printed in box 12. They don't have to be in any type of order, alphabetical order. And this letter that's printing after field 12, A, B, C, D, E, that is not the code for the federal government. You need to provide that letter in this first field. And then in the second field, you either pull in the deduction that goes there, or the fringe amount that goes there, or a pay amount that goes there, or a formula that you've created to pull the information in that you need to get the amount into that box. Right, so let me see if I can find in help topics here what I'm talking about. Box 12. Here we go. If you go into help and you type in box 12 under the index tab, this will show you all the different values that need to go in that first field, the different letters that need to go into that first field. So this is the D is the amount for the 401k. Now, if you're dealing with boxes 11, you're putting amounts, you're pulling again, pays, deductions, fringes, or a formula. You can pull two amounts in here. Okay. And look down below here where it says box 11, section 457. And then you've got another field that's not section 457. And then down here, use the text button to type in whatever this is that needs to print there. Maybe you're putting use of a company car in there. And then come over here to the larger amount and click the pays button and find that particular pay ID. And I don't have a car set up, so we'll just maybe put sick in there. Okay. All right, so the parts that you are going to modify on this form, again, are boxes 11, 12, and 14. The rest of the fields here are taken care of by Sage. They're pulling in the amounts for you off the master file. So I'm going to cancel this. And we just have the one default. Okay, we're good. And I need to change that back so it's just a penny. Okay. Okay. Right, now, to run W-2s, you're going to come back here under Federal E-File and Reporting. New report. You're going to find the 2018 W-2, W-3. Make sure that the right year is coming in. Your employees will be listed and selected. Hit your Next button, and then click Generate. All right, so the screen here for the test drive, we're going to go ahead and just do a test drive, not a real run. You should do a test drive on your entire master file, print them all out to blank paper so that you can verify that the amounts are coming out correctly. On the next window, your company ID will show up, or federal ID. In this first run, we're just going to do no, I use a single payroll file for this tax ID. And again, it brings up your company information. Just click on Next here. You're filing for your company. On this run, it's going to pull in your state tax information. If anything is missing when you go to hit the Next button, it will tell you which tax, and it'll prompt you for your tax account number. Do you have any employees who are exempt? Do you have any employees that are members of the clergy? Do you want control numbers on your W-2s? Do you have any employees that want to receive their forms electronically? And you can mark that. And then hit Next. If you're going to print control numbers, give it a starting control number. Mark your the type of payer that you are. If you have any third-party sick, you need to check this. And it could be that you're putting that out down in box 14 for the tax withheld. Let's see. There's some other miscellaneous stuff down here that you probably won't be filling that in. Just hit your next button, and then it's going to go out and generate for us here. Now it's also going to bring up a grid where it's going to go through and do some verification. It's taken it a while. There we go. Okay, so we know we're in test drive, and then it should pull up the grid with all your employees that you've selected. Use the next button at the top. It's verifying the correct information. Just keep hitting the next button, and if it finds any errors, like here's an error here, so my Social Security withheld is incorrect, I'm going to go ahead and continue without correcting, because I'm going to go ahead and get the printed to paper, and then I'm going to do some troubleshooting inside the master file before I run the final run. So I'm going to keep going here, nexting. Yep, we know that. All right, so here again, I get my filing options. We're going to just come down here and just grab this so that we just get the employee copies to print. Okay. No divider sheets. It's going to show us what we selected to print on this window, and then it should pull in the forms. Right. So in a test run, you're going to go ahead and just print. Use the print button and get your forms to print out, and then go through and verify them. If you are in the live run, after you print and you go forward, you'll get the e-file options. Okay. All right, so this is the test run. And it's on a single payroll data file. So I wanted to demonstrate for you, if you have multiple payroll master files and you need to do a single W-2 run. Okay, I've got two data folders. I've got my main folder for construction that has my field people, my office personnel, and then I have a second folder that is my executive. But I need to pull them all together into one W-2 run. So what you're going to do is run the first run through in one of the folders. Now, in your handout, there is the first example is having named files. So you've got a named payroll master file and a named transaction file. So if you look at the bottom of page 38, these are the instructions if you have named files in the same data folder. The one that we're going to do is on page 40, starting there in the middle where we have multiple data folders. right? So we're going to run the first run of W-2s. And I'm going to go ahead and just do a test run. And this time I'm going to say, yes, I use multiple payroll data files for this federal ID. Okay. And then when you get to this window right here, you're going to click the Export button right here, up here in the middle. And when that comes up, if you've done this multiple times, you need to make a note of this number right here. And I'm going to go ahead and give it a password. But what we should see, okay, is the file name show up down here at the bottom on the grid. So we're going to say OK to that. And then we're going to close. Okay. Now we're going to go over and we're going to go into our executive payroll folder. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to run federal e-file. We're going to run W-2s again. And there's my executive guy. No. You didn't do that. Come on. Okay, that is not making me very happy. Why are you doing that? The table PR tax. Wow, that's a strange message. Okay, hold on. Oh. No, I tested this before we started. I don't know what happened here for it to lose. They should be sharing. Okay, so let's see if that pulled in the taxes. It did. Okay. All right. So let's try this again. Apology for the error there. Okay. Let's try it again. We'll do a test run again. And I'm going to say yes. This time I'm saying yes again. I use multiple data files for this tax number. And I'm going to export again. I'll give it a password. Okay. And now you see here I've got a file that has 2 employees in it, and I've got a file that has 1 employee in it. So I'm going to go ahead and close. And now I'm going to run it one more time. I'm going to do another test run here. Multiple files. This time, I'm going to merge these 2 together. Okay, so I'm going to check these, and I'm going to click Merge. And it wants to me to make sure that I've got all my employees. I'm going to say yes. Okay, so it's merged the 2 together. Okay, now it's going to take me through, and I should, I got to put some address fields in here. Oops, fine. Come on. Okay. Oh boy, now it wants all this information. So because I'm merging these things together, it doesn't have that information. So I need to go ahead and get this in here. This was what? Unemployment. Okay, that. Yeah. So you do. Just make that up here. Yeah. Okay, now we should be able to go. Next. Whoop. Next. And we should have, when we get done with this, we should have 3 employees forms. Think about that for a minute. Okay, while we're waiting for this to come up, on page 43 in your handout, at the bottom is the paper that you'll need for both the 1099s and the W-2s. All right, so here we've got now a combined run. You see I've got 3 employees on the screen. So now I could go through and just next all the way through. It's going to double check all of the information that needs to print on the forms. And then it will get you to the place where you could actually print your forms out. So what I would do is, if you've got the multiple data file situation, is get them all together, do it in a test run, and then print out just a test run to blank paper and go through and make sure, again, that everybody is showing up with a form and that the amounts are correct. You do have to have that information, the combined information. If you end up, I think where I made my mistake is I didn't do the final run over in the main data folder. I did it in the executive folder that didn't have all the Atrix information in it. So what I could have done is gone back to the construction folder and ran did the merge and run the forms from there. Now you can do this, like I said, double or multiple data folders. Doesn't have to be just one or two, could be more. You can also do this with named files. So if you've got your executive payroll in a separate named master file, you can do it that way, and it will actually prompt you to select the correct master file and the transaction file that goes with it. Okay. All right. The forms, again, just to remind you that over 330 U.S. and state, federal and state forms. There's no cost to printing any of these forms. You can get any of these forms that we have listed here. You can do e-filing on these federal forms. There'll be a cost, and depending on how you do it with your company, if you're paying by the form, then that might get a little bit spendy if you have to run the multiple forms for your company, either each pay period or each month or each quarter. So it might be a good idea to take a look at their pricing to see how much money you can save on that. Same with the state forms. And again, I've got the paper is in your handout as well, the type of paper that you're going to need. And then I've also got the forms needed for the ACA forms. And also in your handout, we're not going to go through this today, but I've got the knowledge base article is in your handout, knowledge base 70726, and it walks you through what you need to do to set up and then to be able to run the actual the actual forms. Okay, so just the reminders here before we go for today. Printing is free. You need to set up your forms, your W-2 forms, and you can also do some setup on the quarterly forms within Sage. But the Atrix charges, they're going to charge you for your W-2s and your 1099 e-filing. They actually charge for all of the forms e-filing. Again, the printing is free. So you might again want to just verify what those package prices are. And then you can have a credit card on file for that charge. You may also, if you're having them make your deposits, you have your bank set up in there as well. So it's just a very nice feature. I actually use Atrix myself for my own payroll. I was doing it with a payroll service, and they were charging me about $150 a month to do my payroll, and then there was another fee at the end of the year. Once Atrix came out, I started doing it myself. I pay a $69 fee for the entire year for all of my forms, and then I pay $25 for them to do the W-2. And it's amazing. It's fast, and you just don't have to worry about anything really. All right, so I want to thank you for joining us. A reminder that we're repeating the year-end procedures class next week, Tuesday the 18th, same time, 1 o'clock Central. So if you have anybody that wants that didn't sit in the first one, or if you want to join us again, we'd love to have you. Otherwise, I think we're done.